Welcome, and here's part 2 of your argumentative analysis. We are going to continue talking about how to do an argumentative essay. Remember, in an argument essay, you state a position or claim about an issue. The claim is supported with convincing reasons and evidence. Remember, your goal is to convince your reader that you are right. Let's begin by reading the essay. You can follow along as I read it. The high cost of droughts. Water is essential to human life. It is so important that a drought can have devastating effects. Drought is devastating because it causes the loss of jobs and the increase in prices of things like food and oil. First, drought is devastating because it takes away jobs from people who depend on water to make their living. In the 1930s, droughts caused dust storms in the Great Plains. The dust made it impossible for things to grow. Many farmers were forced to abandon their homes and jobs. In addition, many had to move away. In California, a severe drought threatens the state's farms. There are restrictions about how much water people can use to keep their lawns green. In her article, Reuse It, Melissa Meeker proposes that sewage water can be cleanly recycled for agricultural and landscape irrigation. The second impact of drought is that it can cause prices to rise. For example, both Brazil and Spain suffered severe droughts in 2014. According to Decade of Drought, this meant that Spanish farmers did not have adequate water for their crops. In Brazil, coffee crops withered. Next, coffee prices rose because there was less available to buy. Also, olive trees in Spain died in the drought. As a result, world olive oil prices rose sharply. The economic effects of droughts in two countries spread to consumers around the globe. Droughts result in economic hardships that have far-reaching effects. Unemployment and higher prices are devastating to drought victims. These economic costs may motivate people to take steps to lessen or delay harmful effects of drought. The cost of droughts is just too high. Remember, we are using TREE to analyze the essay. T for thesis, R for reasons, E for evidence, and finally E for ending. As a reminder, here was our thesis statement. Drought is devastating because it causes the loss of jobs and the increase in prices of things like food and oil. This was our thesis because it stated our opinion or position on droughts and that they are devastating. It also gave two reasons. One, it causes the loss of jobs, and two, the increase in prices of things. Remember, in the second paragraph, we stated our reason right away. Drought is devastating because it takes away jobs from people who depend on water to make their living. The rest of the paragraph will be spent giving evidence to defend that. In the third paragraph, we start off with our second reason. A second impact of drought is that it can cause prices to rise. Once again, the rest of the paragraph will be given to defend that. Now we move on to the evidence. Evidence is where you give facts, examples, and quotations to explain and support your reason. Read this paragraph to yourself to see if you can find where the evidence is located. Remember, you're trying to support that drought is devastating because it takes away jobs from people who depend on water to make their living. I'm just going to label the rest of the paragraph as E for evidence. It talks about the 1930s when they caused dust storms in the Great Plains. And then it also talked about in California where severe droughts threaten the state's farms. Almost all the paragraph is giving evidence. Now read this paragraph to yourself and see if you can find where the evidence is located to support that drought causes prices to rise. I hope you found the evidence in paragraph 3. Brazil and Spain both suffered severe droughts in 2014. Coffee prices rose worldwide as a result, as well as olive oil prices rising as a result. Now you need to answer the question for E, evidence. Why are these pieces of evidence important? The writer's evidence is important because it supports, develops, or provides. Another way to ask this is, why is the writer using evidence in this paragraph? What is the purpose of it? Is it to help the thesis? And finally, the last E for end. An argument essay ends with the conclusion. The conclusion restates the writer's claim and reasons. It ends with an interesting final thought. We are going to write end instead of E so we don't get confused with the evidence. Please read the last paragraph and see if you can find the conclusion. The end. You found it. The entire paragraph is the end. Droughts result in economic hardships that have far-reaching effects. That is your thesis. Unemployment and higher prices are devastating to drought victims. You are restating your reason. Finally, they end with an interesting thought. These economic costs may motivate people to take steps to lessen or delay harmful effects of drought. The cost of droughts is just too high. Now you need to answer the question, is the conclusion effective? Do that on your PDF. The conclusion is effective because, as a hint to your answer, look at the definition. The conclusion needs to have the writer's claim, thesis, and reasons. It also needs to end with an interesting final thought. Does this conclusion do all of that? Now that you're finished, stop here and make sure that you have all of your end punctuation to your sentences. You will lose points if you're missing that. Also double check that you have your T, R, E, and N labeled in the text. We are going to be working on an essay soon, and we will also follow the tree organization. T for thesis statement, R for reasons, E for evidence, and E for ending. You may be wondering, where is the counter argument? Where are we arguing the opposite point of view? We're going to skip that in this essay, but we will get back to that later. Thank you for doing this lesson with me, and make sure you submit your PDF to the day's assignment.